Have you ever called your dad to pick you up after you beefed it in front of the whole team? Because this is like that, but in space! You're watching WhitneyVision, and this is our breakdown of the hidden details in Valkyrick, including the foreshadowing that Rick's re-entering the dating pool. This is your spoiler warning! If you haven't seen Season 8, Episode 2 of Rick and Morty yet, hit pause on this video and come back once you've formed an unlikely alliance. Before we dive into the episode, let's talk about that new intro. First up, we see two hands in a wrestling match with an audience entirely made up of foot people. I'm gonna call that place Planet Tarantino. I wonder if this hints at a possible rift between Rick and Space Beth and Morty and Beth. Space Beth and Beth haven't had a rivalry in quite some time, but I could definitely see a scenario in which the attention Rick is paying his space daughter make Morty and Beth feel a little left out. After all, this is the first episode of the entire series that doesn't feature Morty at all. This could just be a fun visual gag, but I think it could also be a fun subtext to theorize about. Next, we see goat versions of the Smith-Sanchez family gathered around a trash can eating garbage, while two itty-bitty Jerrys hide in a mouse hole in the wall. Then we've got some sort of a Star Trek space cruise with Janitor Morty beating the shit out of Sailor Boy Rick while two other janitors watch. The most interesting clip to me, though, is this one of Rick and Mr. Nimbus. Are they gonna be a hot new couple this season? Or is this just a multiversal variant hot couple? Either way, happy Pride Month, everybody! I want to see them touch each other's tiny little butts more. Now that Unity is gone and we know that Diane was wiped from every universe, I'm just saying, our boy is a free agent. And I've seen the comments from some of you little freaks on Reddit. A few of you have been theorizing that they used to date for years. I love nothing more than a good enemies to lovers arc. Could the man who once controlled the police now control Rick's heart and also his sea cucumber? Finally, we see the Smith-Sanchez fam as Tetris blocks. Jerry is of course the most annoying shaped piece, the one that can either make or break your high score. It's kind of the perfect representation. Now let's get into Valkyrick. This week's episode title is a reference to the Tom Cruise movie where Nazis plot to kill Hitler, just like the Gromplites plan to take down their own queen from the inside. We open this week on the Defiance, the rebellion group Spacebeth spearheaded against the New Galactic Federation. We previously saw Spacebeth working with them to attack a Gromplite outpost in Season 4's Star Mort Return of the Jedi, and again in a flashback from Season 7's Rick Fending Your Mort. Besides Beth, the Defiance members we've seen before include this pink tentacle-headed alien, female Squanchy, Corsica, who's basically a pit droid, Dichotomous Daniel, and Bug Ann. When Space Beth calls Rick for an extraction later in the episode, we see some of their names listed in her phone contacts. So while this guy is currently nameless, I'm wondering if Casail is the Defiance's three-eyed leader. But we also don't know this pink alien's name, or Lady Squanch's, so it could technically be either of them. My gut is leaning towards the leader though. And I know it's kinda early in the video, but can we do a quick side quest? I gotta know more about Dichotomous Daniel's backstory because his appearances are a little confusing. We first saw him with Beth and the rest of the crew back in Season 4 fighting the NGF, but then in Season 7, the Defiance was shown to be hunting Dichotomous Daniel as their next target, and now he's back chilling in the war room again. I think this means that Beth's fart flashback from Rick Fending Your Mort must have taken place before the events of Return of the Jedi, and that the Defiance somehow convinced Daniel to switch sides or become a double agent between that manhunt announcement and Spacebeth's attack on the outpost. But let me know what you think this guy's deal is in the comments. Like her dad, Spacebeth isn't much of a team player. So she goes on a rogue assassination mission while the rest of the Defiance host pointless meetings. While flying to the Gromplite Queen's location, she uses a wingsuit to fly through space, similar to the suits worn by comic heroes like Batman and Spider-Man. The red guards that Spacebeth eliminates are an homage to the Imperial Guards in Star Wars, but their little helmets look like they were inspired by the British Kingsguard. Two Gromplites talk about how there's a B rating in the window of their command ship because the walls are infested with vermin. According to the restaurant letter rating scale, one of the top reasons why a restaurant would fall from an A quality establishment to a B quality one is due to an infestation of rats, mice, or, space insects. Rick picks up the phone at Hero's Sushi Restaurant in his sub-basement, which was first seen in Season 6's Rictional Mortpoon's Rickmas Mortcation, when Morty drops a lightsaber perfectly vertically. As the lightsaber barrels towards the Earth's core, we catch glimpses of the 22 levels of Rick's underground operations, including this sushi spot. Apparently, there's also an Italian joint called Luigi's that we haven't seen yet. Beth and Rick magnetic portal to the Defiance's headquarters, which are revealed to be located underwater. The leader casts a vote for Natalie to thumbnail the emergency rescue budget for Space Beth. Because Bug Ann, Corsica, and a male guard are the only other people in the room, does that mean that Lady Squanch's real name is Natalie? It wasn't listed in the credits, so like with Cassale, I'm kinda going off vibes assigning names to faces here. During the Gromplite Queen's birthday broadcast, the newscaster announces that she's 70 days young. I'm definitely a little confused about the aging rate of this species, because back in Return of the Jedi, Tammy mentioned that most of the Gromplite troopers are half her age, which would make them around 9 years old. That would mean that their queen ages pretty rapidly in comparison to the other Gromplites. Obviously, this could just be an offhanded joke that I'm reading way too much into, but I don't know, man. If they're willing to make a robot clone queen, they're probably also willing to lie about her true advanced age on the news. When Rick and Space Beth drop in on that insect supremacist arms dealer, peep the TV in the background. This dude is watching an episode of The Days and Nights of Mrs. Pancakes, first seen in Season 1's Lawnmower Dog. Rick also drops a couple of references to Slimer from Ghostbusters and comments on the fact that Super Soldier Serum isn't new or groundbreaking, probably due to all the MCU and sci-fi movies that use that trope. The serum's formula is powered by fungi similar to the zombie fungus from The Last of Us, and the crew's hunt for the Megaspore later on in the episode looks a lot like a walk through the Upside Down in Stranger Things. Inside the Gromplite Lab, we're— oh, hi Puggy.
Oh, do you want to be petted? Are you sure your little head petted? That's really sweet. I love you. I'm sorry, Mommy's working.
Inside the Gromplite Lab, where Rick works on the antidote, there's a community bulletin board called the Daily Hive, and a no litter bug sign above the trash cans. I also really love the basic bitch, but first coffee sign in the break room. Yes, even bugs can be basic bitches. The Gromplite leader, voiced by Stephen Root, aka Milton from Office Space, sets up his floating math projector light to help Rick focus, showing several formulas. We've got the chemical formula for photosynthesis, the formula for speed and light in a vacuum, and the future formula, which is a finance formula used to determine the potential value of investments. There's also the chemical structure of sucrose and Einstein's time dilation formula. After injecting himself with the super serum, Rick goes from liking boobs and boob milk to craving nutritious jelly as he morphs between man and bug. Although fly larvae don't normally eat jelly, bee larvae feed on royal jelly. Royal jelly sounds like a treat that you'd offer Paddington if you ran out of marmalade, but it's actually a protein secreted by nurse honeybees and fed to all the larvae in the colony. Considering that Gromplites have a queen, this tracks. When he realizes that he successfully perfected the antidote for humans, Rick activates a money gun on his arm and says, "Turn on the cash," a reference to the money booths popularized by the old NBC game show Concentration. Rick invites Bird Person, who actually shows up unlike fucking Cisco, and Bird Daughter to join the fight. The last time we saw these two is in Season 7's premiere, How Poopy Got His Poop Back, where we learn that Bird Daughter actually already had a Federation hit list written up, so needless to say, she's pretty stoked to do some daddy-daughter murders. After being raised in a new Galactic Federation prison, she clearly has some issues with the way these guys run things. It also looks like she's gotten some sick Phoenix Person-inspired enhancements. Bird Person also mentions that he's sick of Gene over-texting the group chat. My friends say that this is a reference to how they feel when I send them 19 messages in a row in the middle of the day because I don't have a real job, but it's actually a reference to the post-intervention chat that the boys formed the night they partied with Wolverine. My absolute favorite part of the episode is when Rick and the other Gromplite allies make a bug pact to check in on their fallen comrade's son in college. He has a Bug State sticker on his helmet, so they know which library or football stadium to make a donation to. With an alliance secured between the Defiance and the Federation, Gromplite leader hosts a Return of the Jedi-esque medal ceremony for the heroes on both sides. We get a look at the new Gromplite Queen, who's a lot younger and looks a lot like Queen Amidala, or at least like Queen Amidala's decoy. We actually saw the medal that Rick and the others receive on his desk in Episode 1, which tells me that these eps are airing out of production order. We'll have to see how the rest of the season goes, but I wonder where these episodes originally fell in the lineup. This also clued me in on how often the Gromplites use triangles in their designs and symbols. Just something to keep an eye out for in case this new truce with the Gromplites falls through. Rick had some pretty interesting character development this episode that I think might start showing up in other episodes throughout the season. We've all been speculating speculating for months about what Rick's new life purpose might be in the aftermath of killing his arch-nemesis in the middle of last season, finding out for certain that his wife was intentionally wiped from every part of the multiverse, and being told to kick rocks forever by evil Morty and Unity. After this episode, I'm starting to think that Rick is finding a new purpose in being the dad and grandpa he should have been in the past. Sure, he locked Morty and Summer in a cell phone charger theft matrix for almost 2 decades, but after the events of Unmort Rickon, Rick starts taking some baby steps to show his family that he loves them and is proud of them. While fighting evil Kuatos, Rick tells Summer that she reminds him a lot of Diane, because she's strong and smart and capable. After Morty conquers the fear hole, he just wants to get the fuck out of that Denny's, but Rick goes back in just to hang up his grandson's photo on the wall of those brave enough to face it. And instead of giving her shit or making her beg for it, Rick answers Space Beth's call for a ride by saying that he'll take his lava cake to go so that he can find her and help her. And to be fair, I do think that he overcompensated a bunch in this ep. Instead of letting Beth fight her own battles at work, he overstepped, bragging about her talents and intellect, and ultimately causing her to get fired. But for once, I don't think that he got his daughter in trouble for selfish reasons. I think he was earnestly trying to stand up for her because he's proud of her. Likewise, I'd normally say that Rick only tagged along on this trip for his own personal gain, but he didn't have anything to gain in this episode besides spending time with his daughter. Rick wasn't in it for a bag of Calaxian crystals or revenge on the president or to embarrass the hell out of Morty. He legitimately wanted to go on an adventure with Space Beth, and even invited Bird Person to do the same with his daughter. BP was having a hard time connecting with Bird Daughter too, and going into battle together really brought them together. I'm not a dad, but I can imagine that it's probably cool as fuck to watch your kid absolutely decimate a souped up race of alien insects and uphold a galactic alliance. If Pugsley whipped a bunch of alien ass, I'd be pretty proud of him too. But let's be real, now that the mission is over, it's chill for Rick to get a little selfish. And that's why I think he's also gonna get with Bug Ann in addition to Mr. Nimbus. We don't really know much about this character yet, aside from the fact that she's one of Space Beth's coworkers. In the flashback ep, she's clearly blazed out of her mind in this Defiance meeting though. Everyone else either brought eye drops or didn't show up to work high as balls, but not Bug Ann. She reminds me of me in that way actually, but also Diane. If we assume that Fearhole Diane was anything like the real deal, then clearly Rick loves a gal who knows how to party. I do think it's very purposeful that the writers have Bug Ann flirting with Rick early on in the season, as well as it being a calculated decision to put the medal he received from her in the season opener. Cause I think old Rick has a real crush here. And while we've seen him have flings throughout the series, he's only recently come to an emotional place where any relationship he has isn't overshadowed by his mission to hunt down his wife's killer. Last season ended with Rick showing that he's been too afraid to confront the fact that he needs to let go of Diane's ghost. So it stands to reason that this is an important plot thread that the writers want to explore with Rick as they move forward. I'm excited to see how Rick approaches romance now that he's learning to let himself live. Plus, him having a crush totally explains why a guy smart enough to invent a matrix within a matrix would even need a phone charger. Bro was probably sliding into that bug babe's DMs and was way too horned up to focus on charging his phone with rocket science. Those are all the Easter eggs and details that I could find in Valkyrick, but I want to know if there's anything I missed in the comments. Like and subscribe to WhitneyVision, always uphold your bug packs, and be sure to check out my podcast Guardians of the Galaxy with Tommy Bechtold and MT. I'm Scarlet Wit, and you're watching WhitneyVision.